Andrew, we are now going to get into the absolute worst division in football. I cannot wait to talk about it. And that is, of course, the NFC East. Andrew, I referenced your Saints paraphernalia in the background. The Saints are part of one of the best divisions in football in the NFC South. The Giants, on the other hand, our local team, are part of the worst division in football. Absolutely. No question about it. We're going to talk about the different facets of the NFC East here. We'll start with the Giants. We're going to work our way up through the division to the 1-2-1 Philadelphia Eagles. And we will look at every team as bad as they have been. But we'll start with the Giants. They're an 0-4. They have the worst offense statistically in football. That includes the Jets. They have scored the least points in the league through 4 games. Another stinker offensively on Sunday. They scored 9 points in a loss to the Rams. They lose 17-9. Andrew, starting with the Giants offensively, I think a lot of this centers around Daniel Jones, and he has not looked particularly good in the early going this season. And Andrew, I think it's to the point where it's probably a little concerning. He's turned the ball over a lot. He's made some bad decisions. And Andrew, I think that's pretty concerning for Giants fans right now.
Yeah, I mean, going into the season, the Giants thought their defense was going to be the big issue, and it turns around. And I think Barkley getting hurt is obviously a huge factor into this. But Daniel Jones, he looked pretty good down the stretch. He was starting to really hit a rhythm last year. And then it seems like that blown up in his face kind of this year, starting off in these first 4 games. As you said, being the worst offense in the league this year behind the Jets is really, really difficult to do. And the Giants have done it. And to me, it's puzzling because they have some offensive weapons. You have Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. You should be able to muster up some offense. I know without Barkley, and the offensive line is definitely shaky for sure, but to be last, and a lot of that having to do with Daniel Jones, his decision-making hasn't been really good, missing some easy throws, not reading some easy coverages. I think a few interceptions. This is the last interception. He got baited into throwing it last week. So again, I think a lot of it falls on Jones, but again, I think Barkley, him not being there hurts him too, but I don't know. You definitely have to be a little concerned as he's regressed here at the start of the season.
Yeah, and you were talking about Daniel Jones's interception on Sunday. It was a comeback route that he just threw. Didn't think the corner would break on it. He did. But I think it's also interesting to look at Daniel Jones, and I've made the comment/joke on this show that you will get all ends of the Daniel Jones spectrum within a drive. Like on Sunday, in the last drive, he made this brilliant running play out of the pocket, got a first down, and I don't think it was 3 plays later he threw the pick. So the inconsistency here is what I think is really concerning, because he's shown flashes that he could be really good. Like, he threw a beautiful deep ball in the Monday night game against Pittsburgh. Like, he's shown you that he can perform. The problem is on the next drive, he's a completely different quarterback. So they haven't been able to find that consistency. And as you said, Andrew, he's got some weapons. I mean, Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, as you said. He's got some pieces around him. And if you want to count Golden Tate in that as well. But it's the way he's played, he's so inconsistent. It's still so hard to assess him because he shows you a lot of good, but he also shows you a lot of bad. He does not show you, however, a lot of in between. And Andrew, I think that's the trouble point for Giants fans, because they can't figure out if this guy's good or bad. I think that's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is only 4 games, which is something that you definitely want to see him over a 16-game season. But if he's looking this inconsistent, as you were saying, you get everything on one drive. It's not even a whole game. It's one drive. And he's a guy that I think if you were able to have a running game with Barkley, that would have probably make it a little more level. But still, it's just, as you were saying, just very questionable reads, very questionable. But then he makes some big plays too. Like, it's like you're getting up and down. And what I'm thinking is, if they keep on losing, would they then tank to get another quarterback like Trevor Lawrence? I mean, that's something that, would you rather get the slam dunk, or would you keep on kind of bringing on Jones along and trying to really get him to that level to being a playoff quarterback? But I mean, obviously the team's not ready right now to even make the playoffs around Jones. So would you tank to try to bring in a guy like Lawrence? That's very, very interesting, I think.
That's a great question. I've thought about it more in terms of the Jets, right? Sam Darnold's in year 3. Do they go take Trevor Lawrence? Because the Jets have looked like the worst team in football. in the first 4 weeks, unquestioned. The Giants are down a bit right now just because there's a few 0-4 teams. I think they're behind Houston's pick, which belongs to Miami, because I don't even remember what trade it was that Bill O'Brien made.
I think it was
Laremy Tunsil. That was it. I thought, you know what was funny, Andrew? I was actually thinking about this because I didn't want to look it up because that's cheating. I thought for some reason it was Lamar Miller. I had the wrong Bill O'Brien trade where he gave up the first pick. Shout out Bill O'Brien. Imagine, by the way, just a quick sidebar here. So Bill O'Brien's leading the Chiefs 24-0 in the second quarter of their playoff game back in January. Imagine telling him at that point you're never going to win another game. That would have been crazy. That would have been crazy. Back to the NFC East here, though. That's an interesting question about tanking for Trevor Lawrence. Joe Judge, I think whether that's the right move or not, I don't think Joe Judge is going to let them do it because he doesn't seem like that type of guy. He's a super intense coach. You've seen the stuff he's doing in practices. So I doubt that he would let them do it. And there's also the question of what is Trevor Lawrence going into here? Because you also want to, I think part of it on his end, he has the leverage to sit there and say, okay, I want to get myself into a good situation here. So it'll be interesting to look at the Giants ultimately decide they are going to do. I'm not sure what the answer is. I think ultimately they're probably going to stick with Daniel Jones at least as long as Gettleman's there. But that's the other thing. Dave Gettleman has not shown you anything in terms of roster construction that leads you to suggest he could build a championship contending type of roster. So if the Giants do wind up going into contention in the next few years, Andrew, I'd be stunned if it is in any part really due to Dave Gettleman. As terrible as that sounds to say, he just hasn't really shown you that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point about Judge too, like that they're not going to go for Lawrence because he's a guy. He kind of reminds me of Brian Flores with the Dolphins. Because coming out of that Bill Belichick fiery system, play as hard, do your job. Like he was able to win 5 games with Miami, and they were obviously not like a great team, but they won some games. And I could see the Giants doing that too because they're a team. They're not like the Jets. I feel like they're not a straight dumpster fire. I mean, I don't think they're very good, but I think they're going to win a few games, and they probably won't end up being in that number 1 pick. But I think the Giants got the coach. Do they have the GM? I don't think so, but I think Judge is the guy. I think he's a solid coach, and he brings a lot of intensity, and I think you need that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I also think the Giants will wind up getting to 4 wins or something like that at the end of this season, just by virtue of playing hard. They have played hard. You have to give that to them. They're bad, but they've played hard.